The Muses. There are many different representations of what they could have been. They could have been primordial goddesses or water nymphs. They are the 9 daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory. The Muses came into being when Zeus and Mnemosyne were intimate for 9 nights in a row. An interesting fact about Mnemosyne is that mnemonic devices come from her name. Mnemonic devices are a method of remembering things. Examples include things such as or. Mnemonic devices aid in remembering many things, which is where the connection to Mnemosyne can be seen. Each of the Muses represents a different art: dance, love poetry, history, comedy, sacred poetry and religion, epic poetry, lyric poetry, astronomy, and tragedy. The Muses are remembered for many things, one of them being sharing the tales of other gods. The Muses would sing to share the story, or write a piece of literature, such as a poem or short story. The Muses may appear to be kind-hearted because of the nature of their powers. They were in fact not very kind. Many gods and mortals alike knew that the Muses put on a facade, as they were in fact very vain and ignorant. The Muses also resented any mortal who claimed to be better than them in the arts. Many of the stories of the Muses relate to a mortal who claimed to be superior to them. There is an ancient myth in the Iliad about a poet Tamris who claimed he could outsing the Muses. When Tamris lost, the Muses blinded him, as well as took away his ability to play the lyre and write poetry. A second story is that the 9 sisters Pleiades challenged the Muses to a contest. When the sisters lost to the Muses, they turned them into a group of chattering birds. Terpsichore is a personification of the tradition of dance. Her name most closely translates to delighting in dance. She had 3 daughters, the Sirens. The Sirens were known for luring sailors to their death by song. Eritu was a personification of the practice of love poetry. Her name most closely translates to lovely and beautiful, an image common to love songs and poetry. Clio was a personification of the past, such as history and scrolls. Her name most closely means make famous. She had only one son, Hymneos. He was the god of wedding hymns. Thalia personified comedy. The translation of her name means being rich in festivity and blooming. She had many children, all demigods. Samracian Corbants is what they were known as. They presided over a dance of men who danced with shields and spears. Polyhymnia personified sacred poetry and religion. Her name most closely translates to many hymns, possibly representing the many songs related to religion. Calliope personified epic poetry and the writing tablet. Epic poetry is usually long, serious writing with a hero, similar to many of the stories we read today. This explains why the meaning of her name is beautiful voice, like an author. Calliope had only one son, Orpheus. Orpheus received the gift of superhuman music talent from his mother. His music could bring happiness and healing, or rain and terror, to all of the people that he played for. Euterpe personified lyric poetry, a dramatic type of poem. Lyric poetry can often bring delight to the people listening, possibly explaining her name translation, which is to give delight. Urania personified astronomy. In the past, the skies and space were seen as home of the gods, a heavenly place. The knowledge of this is what makes Urania's name translation understandable. Heavenly One. Urania had only one son, Hymenaeus. Hymenaeus was also the son of Clio. This creates some confusion as to whose son Hymenaeus truly was. Because Greek stories are from such a long time ago, stories were initially passed on through word of mouth. This method of sharing stories creates room for changes every time the story is passed on, which could explain why Hymenaeus is known as both the son of Urania and Clio. Melpone personified tragedy. Her name, however, translates to celebrate with song, the opposite of tragedy. She had 3 daughters, the Sirens. The Sirens are also known as the daughters of Terpsichore. This is caused by translation differences, as the stories have been passed on throughout history. The myth of the Muses and Comatas is a simple tale. Comatas was a goat herder and slave. He used to feed his goats on the lower slopes of Mount Helicon. He worshipped the Muses, and one day decided to sacrifice one of the goats to the Muses. When his master realized a goat was missing, he violently locked Comatas in a chest and left him there for over a year. However, the Muses had not forgotten Comatas' sacrifice and missed his dancing along the hills of Mount Helicon, and they kept him alive by sending bees to keep him fed. When his master opened up the chest almost a year later, Comatas was still alive. The master, knowing that the Muses controlled bees, believed that the Muses had taken Comatas under their wing, and from then on treated Comatas with the greatest respect and utmost kindness. Ancient Greeks often asked for the help of the Muses in their compositions, work, singing, and dancing. The ancient Greeks asked for this help in the form of prayer and divine inspiration from the goddesses. There was also a festival called the Musaia. It was an ancient festival, and it was also a competition that was held every 5 years in honor of the Muses. It would include athletic games, a torch race, and it also offered prizes, not only for music, but also other more athletic events. Another interesting fact about the Muses is that oftentimes an artist or poet would call on a particular muse to inspire them before beginning a piece. This is why Homer's Odyssey begins with, "Sing to me of the man, Muse." This is him calling to a muse to inspire him. There are many words that are derived from the myth of the Muses. The first word that comes to mind is the word muse, as a muse is simply something that helps inspire someone either musically or literature related. The word muse comes from the Greek word musa, which translates to the word muses. The second word derived from the myth of the Muses is the word music. Music represents an art and is an art form itself, as it really makes sense that it came from the Muses, as they each represent an art. The word music comes from the Greek word musaik, which means art of the Muses. Another word that is derived from the Muses is the word mosaic. It comes from the Greek word musa, which means muses. Mosaic is derived from the word muses because it is another art form, as making the mosaics is a very hard job. The final word that was derived from the myth of the Muses is the word museum. Museums represent all of the arts, any form of literature you could imagine, any piece of artwork or music, anything you could think of related to the arts is in a museum somewhere. This is why it makes sense that the word museum was derived from the myth of the Muses. It also helps to understand that the word museum comes from the Greek word musa, which means muses.